and welcome to another in-depth royal news report. The Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall have wrapped up their Jubilee tour down under. They visited Papua New Guinea, Australia, and New Zealand as part of the continuing celebrations of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. Overall, they were well received in each place that they visited, and I think that the concept of Charles becoming king one day, specifically their king, is something that I think people have warmed up to. From what I've heard and from what I've seen, Prince Charles is well liked down there, as is Camilla, though of course no one wants to see the Queen go anywhere anytime soon. I think that once she does pass away, the idea of King Charles is not a bad idea to many people. In fact, there's been a lot of good feelings and a lot of respect for him, as well as his wife. And speaking of the Queen, Her Majesty and her husband, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, have recently celebrated their 65th wedding anniversary. Congratulations to the couple. As Her Majesty once said of her husband, "Without Philip, I could not have carried on." Prince Philip has always been a wonderful support to the Queen, and while I think he, can be rough around the edges sometimes, I think that that is something that the Queen needs. She has a very polished, very formal way of life always happening around her. So having someone like Philip, to whom she can confide all sorts of things, I think is refreshing for her because he will tell her what he thinks. This 65th anniversary is noted as the Blue Sapphire anniversary. Now this is different from the 45th anniversary, which I discussed last episode. Prince Charles, I feel, should celebrate big time for his 45th anniversary as being Prince of Wales. 45th is also known as the Sapphire anniversary, but because of its chemical components, its mineral base, sapphires can be just about any color. So 45th anniversary is just sapphire, which could be blue, it could be orange, it could be anything. Being a princess is not a career. Australian feminist Casey Edwards is making sure that everybody knows that. Edwards recently wrote an article about the whole princess fantasy based on a U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor's recent appearance on a children's television show. During the show, Sotomayor says that pretending to be a princess is fun, but it is not a career. Edwards, writing about this comment, goes on to say that she agrees with Sotomayor and that, quote, "Our most famous real-life princesses, Kate and Mary, seem like nice enough people, but what do they do other than look pretty, accept flowers, smile a lot, and defer to their husbands? Sure, some bucked the trend, like Diana Spencer," says Edwards. But she's picked Kate, extremely famous, part of the royal family, and Princess Mary, who is the Crown Princess of Denmark, but she is an Aussie native. So, two women that became princesses that the Australian public will obviously know well. Well, cheers to that, but I don't think that's entirely fair. Instead of bringing Diana up as some kind of comparison of bucking the trend, why not introduce readers to the real-life major European princesses? Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden. I don't see her deferring to anybody. She represents Sweden quite well from what I've seen and heard of her activities, and she gave her husband his title. How about Letizia of Spain, Matilda of Belgium, or even Maxima of the Netherlands? And what about Britain's Princess Anne? If you want to stick to the Brits, why not bring Princess Anne to the forefront as a strong, independent woman? And, oh yes, princess. I don't think Edwards wants to do that, though. To highlight them would make her point moot. True, princess is not your typical career, but we can take away a lot of good lessons and inspiration from women who actually are princesses. How to be classy, how to have manners, how to have diplomacy, and how to have respect. That deferential to the husband bit that's got Edwards in such a bind, that's called respect. Kate walks a step behind Prince William because he is the future king, and let's face it, he is the one who's been in the public eye all his life and knows what to do. And Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, also shows respect to the Queen and walks one pace behind her. That is out of respect to the fact that she is Queen Regnant. See, what I want to know is, where are Casey Edwards' complaints about women like Kim Kardashian? How about these overly exposed gross buckets women in the music industry? Looking like a prostitute trying to shift a sex tape is hardly feminist or a career. But try as I might, I couldn't find one Casey Edwards complaint about that. How about that horrific girly inflection that every woman on earth is using in radio and commercials these days? So, what's the deal with that? Every woman is supposed to talk like that in order to sound sexy? How come Edwards isn't screeching to the rafters about that one? I know I do. I'm just the girl next door. Oh my God. If you want to vote for him, you just have to look at his record. I am so hungry. I totally missed breakfast. I think I'll get some chaps with my sandwich. Really? Maybe these are the things that Casey Edwards should find alarming, instead of bleating on about how awful it is for a woman to wear well-cut, appropriate outfits, behaving well, and being respectful of your husband. Mental Floss is a very cool little magazine that I actually gifted to someone, and this one my mother-in-law passed on to me because, of course, it says truth about royalty. And inside we have some very, very neat things. We have the female king, Peggy Leen Bartels, who lives in Washington, D.C., but she is actually king of a little village in Ghana. The village was ruled by her uncle, but when he died, he named her his successor. So now she commutes a couple of times a year to the village in Ghana and oversees the construction of schools, fresh water, and all sorts of other projects that help make the village thrive. There's also an interesting little piece about the cult of Prince Philip on the island of Vanuatu. Prince Philip visited there in 1974, which to these villagers seemed to fulfill the prophecy that a white male would come down from a mountain, travel abroad, marry a powerful lady, and return to their island. And so in return, these villagers gave him this big stick for whacking pigs. It's called a nal-nal, as a token of their appreciation for his visit. And in return, Philip sent them a picture of him holding their gift. And there has been the Prince Philip movement ever since. They also show you the best castles to spend a night in, why the Queen gets 2 birthdays, which monarch has the most titles, and an Indian lawyer/farmer who stands to inherit the now defunct throne of France. This is an awesome issue of Mental Floss, but they usually have great stuff anyway, but this one especially definitely tickled my fancy. So, Mental Floss. Feel smart again. So that is all the time we have for this week. Join me again next week as we talk about some of the things happening in the world of royalty. Take care, and as always, God save the Queen.